It was just another busy morning in a small courtroom. People filled the seats, lawyers shuffled papers, and the judge called case after case. But no one knew that something unforgettable was about to happen, a moment that would touch everyone in the room. A young girl, no older than 9 or 10, stood quietly before the judge. Her hands were folded in front of her, her eyes focused on the ground. She had been brought in for a minor offense, something small and non-violent, just a misunderstanding really. But her presence in that courtroom was heavy. You could feel it in the air. The judge, an older man known for being firm but fair, looked at her file and began asking questions. Name, age, why she was there. She answered softly, barely above a whisper. Her voice trembled slightly, not out of fear, but out of something else, something deeper. Then, almost like a whisper to herself, she said something that made everyone stop. "I'm hungry." The judge paused. He looked up from his notes, unsure if he'd heard her correctly. "I'm sorry," he said. "Can you say that again?" The little girl raised her head just enough to meet his eyes. "I'm hungry," she repeated. For a moment the room was frozen. You could hear the sound of people shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Even the lawyers and court officers who had heard it all didn't quite know how to respond. The judge stared at her, really looked at her. Her clothes were worn, her shoes were too small, her arms were thin, and her cheeks a little sunken. That single sentence, "I'm hungry," said more than anything else that could have been in the file. This wasn't a bad kid. This was a hungry child, a forgotten child, one who slipped through the cracks. The judge slowly removed his glasses, leaned back in his chair, and looked at the girl like a grandfather would look at a granddaughter in pain. There was no anger in his eyes, just concern. He didn't say anything right away. He simply looked around the courtroom, and the silence said it all. Everyone was expecting the judge to move on with the case, maybe even issue a warning and let her go. But what he did next was something no one in that courtroom would forget. To be continued. The courtroom waited in silence. The little girl had just told the judge she was hungry, not guilty, not afraid, just hungry. The judge leaned forward slowly, his voice calm but firm. "When did you last eat?" he asked her. The girl hesitated. Her eyes dropped to the floor again as she whispered, "Yesterday morning. We don't have food at home anymore." You could feel the atmosphere shift. No one moved, no one spoke. Even the stenographer paused. This wasn't a courtroom anymore. It was a moment of truth, and the judge knew he had to do something. Without saying another word, he turned to the bailiff and said something that would shock everyone in the room. "Pause the court. Go get this girl something warm to eat. Now. I'll pay for it myself." Gasps echoed softly through the room. Judges don't do that, but he did. While they waited for the food, the judge stepped off the bench. He walked over and sat beside the girl, not as a judge, but as a human being. He asked about her life, where she lived, who took care of her, and how long things had been this way. She told him her mum had lost her job. They were staying in a shelter but hadn't had a proper meal in days. Sometimes she pretended to be full so her little brother could eat more. The judge listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge her for being in court, because in that moment he realized something. She didn't need punishment. She needed protection. When the food finally arrived, hot chicken, rice and fruit, the girl's eyes lit up. She said thank you quietly and began to eat slowly, politely, savoring every bite. The courtroom watched, some with tears in their eyes. Lawyers, officers, even strangers. They all saw her differently now. But the judge wasn't done. He called child services and spoke directly to them. He contacted a local non-profit that provided food and housing. He even gave the girl's mother a second chance, connecting her with job assistance and emergency support. He didn't just help for one day. He created a path forward. When the session resumed, the judge looked at everyone and said something that would be remembered for years. This courtroom is not just a place for punishment. It's a place for justice. And today, justice meant feeding a child, not failing her. The audience applauded quietly, respectfully, moved. The little girl didn't just leave with a full stomach. She left with hope, a reminder that someone cared, that maybe the world wasn't as cold as it felt the day before. And the judge, he returned to his bench, but from that day on, people said he sat a little differently, a little softer, a little wiser. Because sometimes, the most powerful decision a judge can make is one from the heart.